The sun was setting over 4 when Park stood at the window of her small office and watched the golden light fall across the wheat fields. 3 years ago, those fields had been nothing but red dirt and rocks. Now they stretched for miles in every direction, feeding 12,000 people who called this distant world their home. She was 53 years old and she had given everything to this colony. Her youth, her marriage, her dreams of returning to Earth, all of it had been traded for the chance to build something new on the edge of known space. The communication panel on her desk beeped. She turned away from the window and pressed the button. Administrator Park, this is Lee at the comm station. We have a problem. Closed her eyes for a moment. There was always a problem. The water recyclers were failing again. The medical supplies were running low. The children needed new teaching materials. After 3 years without a supply ship, problems were the only thing they had plenty of. What is it this time? She asked. There was a pause. When spoke again, her voice was different, scared. Ships, ma'am, 3 of them. They just came out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They are not human ships. Felt her heart go cold. She grabbed her jacket and ran. The communication center was a small building near the center of town. By the time arrived, a crowd had already gathered outside. She pushed through them and found sitting at her console, her young face pale in the blue light of the screens. Was already there. The chief engineer was a big man with rough hands and tired eyes. He had kept the colony alive through 3 years of isolation, fixing machines with spare parts he made himself, keeping the lights on through pure stubbornness. Show me, said. Pointed at the screen. 3 red dots were moving slowly toward the planet. Next to each dot was a string of alien symbols that the computer was trying to translate. The computer identified them, said. They are Dominion ships, 2 cruisers and 1 carrier. Swore under his breath. Everyone knew about they were slavers. They moved through the edges of civilized space, taking what they wanted, taking who they wanted. The Galactic Union condemned them but did nothing to stop them. They were too strong, too numerous, too willing to fight. How long until they reach us? Asked. At their current speed, about 16 hours. Looked around the room. She saw the fear in everyone's eyes. She felt it in her own chest. But she had not kept this colony alive for 3 years by giving in to fear. I need you to gather everyone who knows how to use a weapon. Hunting rifles, farming tools, anything. We cannot fight 3 warships with hunting rifles. I know, but I will not let our people be taken without a fight. She turned to, keep trying to contact the Galactic Union, try the emergency frequencies, try everything. Nodded, but her eyes said what her mouth would not. They had been trying to contact anyone for 3 years. No one had answered. No one was coming. The night passed slowly. Walked through the colony, talking to people, trying to keep them calm. She watched mothers hold their children close. She watched old men check their hunting rifles with shaking hands. She watched young couples say goodbye to each other, not knowing if they would see the morning. By dawn, the ships were visible in the sky. 3 dark shapes against the pink clouds, growing larger with every hour. At noon, the communication panel crackled. A voice came through, speaking in heavily accented standard. Attention, human colony. This is commander of the Dominion vessel Eternal Hunger. You have 48 hours to surrender your population for processing. If you do not surrender, your settlement will be destroyed. There will be no further warnings. The message repeated 3 times, then went silent. Stood in the town square, surrounded by her people. 12,000 faces looked at her, waiting for her to tell them what to do. She had no answer to give them. We have 2 days, she said finally. We will use them well. Start moving the children to the underground shelters. Everyone who cannot fight should go with them. Everyone else we prepare. An old farmer named stepped forward. Administrator, what are we preparing for? You said yourself we cannot fight warships. No, we cannot. But we can make them pay for every person they take. We can show them that humans are not easy prey. And we can hope. Hope for what? Looked up at the sky, at the dark shapes that promise death and slavery. Hope that someone out there remembers we exist. That night sat alone at her console. She had tried every frequency, sent every type of distress signal she knew. Nothing. The Galactic Union had forgotten them. Earth was too far away. They were alone. But she kept trying. She sent the same message over and over into the endless darkness of space. This is 4 Colony. We are under attack by Dominion forces. 12,000 civilians, including 3,000 children. We have no weapons, no military, no defenses. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Please. She did not expect an answer. She had stopped expecting answers years ago. But she kept sending the message anyway because it was all she could do. Miles away, in the underground shelters, a little girl named asked her mother why they had to hide. Bad people are coming, her mother said, but do not worry, someone will help us. Who asked? Her mother had no answer. Above them, the ships moved closer. The commanders looked at the small colony and laughed. Another easy target, another group of weak creatures who would beg and cry and submit. They had done this 100 times before. It was always the same. They did not know that far across the galaxy, on a small blue planet called Earth, a signal was about to arrive. They did not know that humans were different. They did not know that Earth never forgot its children. They would learn. On the second night, found standing alone on the edge of town, looking at the stars. "You should sleep," he said. "I cannot. Every time I close my eyes, I see what is coming." Stood beside her. They had known each other for 15 years. They had built this colony together, fought together, suffered together. "Do you really think anyone will come?" he asked. Was silent for a long moment. "When I was a little girl," she said, "my grandfather told me a story. He said that long ago, when Korea was weak and surrounded by enemies, the people never gave up hope. They believed that as long as one person kept fighting, as long as one voice kept calling out, help would come. Sometimes it took years, sometimes it took generations, but it always came. That was a different time, a different world. Maybe, but humans have not changed. We still remember our own. We still fight for each other." She turned to look at him. "Do I believe someone will come? I do not know, but I believe we have to act as if they will. Because if we give up hope, we have already lost." Nodded slowly. He did not share her hope, but he understood it. "Then we keep fighting," he said. "We keep fighting." Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them, a signal was traveling at the speed of light, carrying the voices of 12,000 people who refused to be forgotten. And somewhere, someone was listening. Admiral was eating breakfast when his life changed. He sat alone in his small apartment near the United Earth Defense Command headquarters, drinking coffee and reading reports on his tablet. He was 61 years old, and he had spent 40 years serving humanity among the stars. His hair was gray, his face was lined with scars and age, and his eyes held the weight of too many battles and too many losses. The call came at exactly 7 in the morning. "Admiral, this is Lieutenant at Signal Intelligence. We have received a priority distress signal. You need to see this immediately." Put down his coffee and left without finishing his breakfast. The Signal Intelligence Center was buried deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. Walked through the security checkpoints and into the main room, where dozens of officers worked at their consoles, monitoring communications from across human space. Lieutenant was a young woman with short hair and nervous eyes. She led to her station and played the recording. The voice was female, young, and filled with desperation. "This is 4 Colony. We are under attack by Dominion forces. 12,000 civilians, including 3,000 children. We have no weapons, no military, no defenses. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Please. The message, repeated several times before, raised his hand. When did this arrive? 4 hours ago. The signal originated from the system, about 6 months away at standard hyperspace speeds. 6 months, closed his eyes. That had given them 48 hours. Even if he sent ships now, even if he pushed them to their limits, they would arrive months too late. The colony would be gone. The people would be taken. There is more, said. We checked our records. 4 was removed from the official colony registry 3 years ago due to a bureaucratic error. They have not received supplies or communication from Earth in all that time. Felt a cold anger building in his chest. 3 years. 12,000 people had been forgotten for 3 years because someone filed the wrong paperwork. Get me a meeting with the Defense Council, now. The Defense Council met in a large room at the top of the command building. Around the table sat generals, admirals, and civilian officials, the men and women who made decisions about life and death across human space. Played the recording for them. He showed them the data. He explained the situation. When he finished, there was a long silence. Finally, Secretary spoke. She was a small woman with cold eyes and a reputation for making hard decisions. Admiral, I understand your concern, but the numbers do not work. 4 is too far away. Even with our fastest ships, we cannot reach them in time. We have experimental slipstream drives, said. They were designed for exactly this kind of situation. Emergency response across long distances. Those drives have never been tested in combat conditions. They are unstable. Using them could destroy our ships. And not using them will definitely destroy 12,000 lives. General Bay, the head of the army, shook his head. We have to think about the bigger picture. If we send our best ships on a suicide mission to save one colony, we weaken our defenses everywhere else. We cannot risk the safety of billions for the sake of thousands. Stood up slowly. He looked around the table at each of them. Let me tell you about the bigger picture, he said. 23 years ago, I lost my wife and daughter to pirates. They were on a transport ship in the outer colonies. The pirates took the ship, killed everyone on board, and sold them for parts. Do you know why that happened? Because someone decided that sending a military escort was too expensive. Because someone looked at the numbers and decided my family was an acceptable loss. No one spoke. Every person on that council is someone's wife, someone's daughter, someone's son. Every person on 4 has a family that loves them, hopes that keep them alive, dreams that they still want to achieve. When we start calculating which lives are worth saving, we stop being human. Secretary frowned. Admiral, I understand your feelings, but we cannot make decisions based on emotion. This is not about emotion. This is about who we are. The Earth Charter, Article 7, states that no human being will be abandoned to slavery or death while Earth has ships that can fly. That is not a suggestion. That is a promise, and I intend to keep it. He placed his hands on the table and leaned forward. I am invoking Article 7. I am requesting authorization to assemble a rescue fleet and proceed to 4 by any means necessary. The room erupted in argument. Some supported him, others called him a fool. The debate went on for hours. In the end, the vote was close, 7-5 in favor of the mission. Did not waste time celebrating. He had ships to gather and crews to assemble. The 4th Rapid Response Fleet came together in less than 24 hours. At its heart was the carrier Indomitable, commanded by Captain. She was 42 years old, a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that worked faster than any computer. She had led 3 successful rescue missions in the past 5 years, each one considered impossible by the experts. Her fighter squadron was led by Lieutenant Commander Shin. He was 35, tall and thin, with a reckless smile that hid a brilliant tactical mind. He had never lost a pilot under his command, and he did not intend to start now. The ground forces were commanded by Sergeant Major O. She was 50 years old, built like a tank, with a voice that could stop a charging enemy at 50 meters. She had fought in 3 liberation campaigns, freeing humans from slavers and pirates across the galaxy. Her troops would follow her into hell itself. They gathered on the Indomitable's bridge as the fleet prepared to depart. "I will not lie to you," said. "The slipstream drives will get us there in 6 days instead of 6 months, but they will burn out in the process. Once we arrive, we will have no way to return home until a relief fleet arrives. We will be stranded in enemy space with damaged ships and limited supplies." Grinned, "Sounds like fun." Crossed her arms. "We have faced worse odds. The question is not whether we can win. The question is whether those colonists can hold on long enough for us to arrive." "They have been holding on for 3 years," said. "They will hold on for 6 more days." Admiral joined them by video link. "Captain, the Council has given its approval. You have full authority to engage and rescue our people, whatever it takes." "Understood, Admiral. We will bring them home." Nodded, his eyes were bright with emotion. "I know you will. Godspeed, Captain, Godspeed to all of you." The connection ended, turned to her crew. "All hands prepare for slipstream jump. This is going to be rough." The engines powered up. The ship began to shake. Through the windows, the stars stretched and blurred into lines of light. And then they were gone, racing across the galaxy faster than anyone had ever traveled before, carrying the hope of 12,000 people who did not know they were coming. In the engine room, the slipstream drive screamed under the strain. Warning lights flashed. Engineers worked frantically to keep the system stable. On the bridge, watched the countdown timer. 6 days, 144 hours. Every second brought them closer to 4. Every second brought them closer to a battle that would change everything. "Hold on," she whispered to the people she had never met but was willing to die for. "We are coming, just hold on." The universe rushed past them, a blur of stars and darkness, and the Fourth Fleet flew toward its destiny. The first landing ships touched down on the outskirts of 4 at hour 12. Park watched them from the roof of the administration building, her hands gripping the railing until her knuckles turned white. There were 5 ships, each one carrying about 50 soldiers. They landed near the farming settlements on the edge of town, where the families lived who worked the distant fields. Within an hour, the screaming started. They moved through the farms like a dark wave. They kicked down doors, dragged people from their homes and put them in chains. Men, women, children, it did not matter. To they were all just cargo. Had sent with a group of volunteers to evacuate those farms before the landing. They had saved most of the families, but not all. Some had refused to leave their homes. Some had been too slow. Some had just been unlucky. By the end of the first day, they had taken 63 people. "We have to do something," said Han. He was 28 years old, a farmer with strong hands and angry eyes. He had watched them take his neighbors, his friends, people he had known since childhood. "We cannot just sit here and wait for them to take us all." Looked at him. "What do you suggest? We have hunting rifles and farming tools. They have plasma weapons and armor. Then we fight smart. We hit them at night when they are not expecting it. We free the people they have taken. We make them afraid." "And how many of us will die in the attempt?" Met her eyes. "How many of us will die if we do nothing?" Had no answer to that. That night gathered 30 volunteers. They were farmers, mechanics, teachers, ordinary people who had never held a weapon in anger. But they were also humans, and they refused to die without a fight. Gave them what weapons he could find: hunting rifles, kitchen knives, metal pipes. It was not much, but it was something. "They have set up a processing camp about 3 kilometers from town," explained, showing them a rough map. "That is where they are holding the people they captured. There are about 40 guards, but most of them are sleeping at night. If we hit them fast and quiet, we might be able to free the prisoners before they know what is happening. Nodded. Then we move at midnight. No lights, no noise. We get our people out and we disappear. They moved through the darkness like ghosts. The twin moons of 4 provided just enough light to see by, but not enough to be seen. Led the way, his heart pounding in his chest. The processing camp was a circle of portable buildings surrounded by a fence of energy beams. Inside, the captured colonists sat in groups, their hands bound, their faces hollow with fear. Guards walked among them, occasionally kicking or hitting those who moved too slowly. Felt his anger building. These were his people, his neighbors, his friends, and these aliens treated them like animals. He raised his hand and signaled his team to spread out. The attack came without warning. 3 teams hit the fence generators at the same time, overloading them and bringing down the energy barrier. The guards turned, confused, reaching for their weapons. They were too slow. His team rushed into the camp, their makeshift weapons swinging. The first guard fell before he could fire a shot. The second managed to get off one blast before a metal pipe crushed his helmet. The prisoners screamed, not understanding what was happening, ran to them, cutting their bonds with a knife. "Run," he shouted. "Get back to town, go." They ran, dozens of them, stumbling through the darkness toward safety. But they were not finished. More guards poured out of the buildings, their weapons blazing. Plasma bolts lit up the night, cutting down anyone who moved too slowly. Saw his friend fall, hit by a bolt meant for him. He saw a young woman he did not know take a blast to the chest and keep running for 3 more steps before collapsing. "Fall back," he screamed. "Everyone fall back." They retreated into the darkness, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. Behind them, they fired blindly into the night, hitting nothing. When dawn came, counted his people. 32 colonists had been freed, 8 of his volunteers were dead, 12 were wounded. It was a victory, but it did not feel like one. In the communications center, Lee sat at her console and listened to static. She had not slept in 2 days. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking, and she had lost all hope. But she kept listening anyway. The distress signal played on a loop, broadcasting into the void. No one had answered. No one would answer. They were alone. She was about to close her eyes when the static changed. At first, she thought she was imagining it, a pattern in the noise, a voice trying to break through. She adjusted the frequency, boosted the signal, filtered out the interference. And then she heard it. "4, this is the United Earth ship Indomitable. Do you copy? 4, this is the Indomitable. Hold on, we are coming." His hands froze on the console. She could not breathe. She could not think. For a moment, she thought she had finally lost her mind. Then she grabbed the microphone and spoke. "Indomitable, this is 4. We copy. Please, please tell me this is real." There was a pause that lasted forever. Then a woman's voice came through, calm and strong. "This is Captain of the United Earth Fleet. We have received your distress signal. We are approximately 19 hours from your position. How many survivors?" 12,000, said, tears streaming down her face. "We have 12,000 people here. They have landed ground forces. They are taking prisoners. We have been fighting back, but we cannot hold much longer." "You will not have to. Hold your position and protect your people. We are coming for you." "Captain, how is this possible? Earth is months away. We used experimental drives, burned them out getting here." There was a hint of a smile in his voice. "That means we are stuck here until a relief fleet arrives, so we might as well make the trip worth it." Laughed and cried at the same time. Thank you so much." "Do not thank me yet. We still have to fight our way through 3 warships. But I promise you this, we will not stop until every person on that planet is safe. That is what Earth does. That is who we are." The communication ended. Sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the console. Then she ran. She found in the underground shelters, helping to organize supplies. When burst through the door, everyone turned to look at her. "They are coming," said. "Earth is coming. They will be here in 19 hours." No one spoke. No one moved. They could not believe what they were hearing. Then a child's voice broke the silence. Little, who had asked her mother who would help them. "I knew it," she said. "I knew someone would come." Fell to her knees and covered her face with her hands. For the first time in 3 years, she cried. Above them, the ships circled the planet, preparing for the final assault. They had no idea what was coming. They had never faced humans in real combat. They knew nothing of Earth's warriors. They would learn. 19 hours remained. The countdown had begun. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Indomitable screamed toward 4, carrying humanity's answer to the question no one thought to ask. What happens when you threaten Earth's children? The universe was about to find out. The commander was named. He had been a slaver for 40 years, and in that time he had taken more than 100 worlds. He knew how these things worked. The weak species begged and pleaded. They offered tribute, resources, anything to survive. And when they realized no help was coming, they surrendered. Humans would be no different. He stood on the bridge of his carrier, watching the planet below. His processing teams had already taken hundreds of colonists. The rest would follow soon. This would be an easy harvest, quick and profitable. His second officer approached. "Commander, we are detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system." Waved his hand dismissively. "Probably debris from a passing comet. Continue the operation." "Commander, the readings are consistent with hyperspace emergence. Multiple ships." "Turned what?" "That is impossible. This system is months away from any human military installation." Before his officer could respond, the space in front of them tore open. The Indomitable came out of slipstream like a bullet from a gun. The carrier was followed by 2 destroyers and a support ship, all of them emerging from hyperspace at a range that should have been impossible. They were practically on top of the formation. On the Indomitable's bridge, Captain watched the ship scramble to respond. "All hands battle stations. Launch all fighters. Target their weapon systems and engines. I want those ships crippled, not destroyed." Lieutenant Commander Shin's voice came through the comm. "Fighter squadron ready to launch. What are the rules of engagement?" "Free fire on any vessel. Protect the colony at all costs. And—" "Yes, Captain." "Do not die. I hate the paperwork." Laughed. "Understood, Captain. Beginning launch." The fighters screamed out of the Indomitable's hangar bays, 60 small ships that moved like a swarm of angry hornets. Led them in a spiral formation, diving toward the nearest cruiser. They fired everything they had. Plasma bolts and missiles filled the space between the fleets, turning the battlefield into a sea of fire. But the human pilots were faster, smarter, better trained. They dodged and weaved through the barrage, returning fire with deadly precision. Lined up his first target, a cruiser that was trying to turn its main guns toward the colony. "Squadron, follow my lead. Hit them in the weapon ports. Take out their teeth." His fighters dove. Their cannons blazed. The cruiser's forward batteries exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. On the Indomitable, fought her ship like she had been born for this moment. The carrier was not designed for close combat, but she did not care. She pushed her ship into ranges that made her officers nervous, using her point defense systems to tear into hulls at distances where they could not miss. "Bring us alongside their carrier," she ordered. "I want to put our portside batteries right in their face." "Captain, that will put us in range of their boarding parties." "Then make sure our Marines are ready to receive guests." The Indomitable swung around, its massive form blocking the carrier's line of fire to the planet. The 2 ships exchanged fire at nearly point-blank range. Armor plates melted. Explosions rocked both vessels. But the Indomitable held. On the ground, Sergeant Major O stood in the open door of it as it screamed toward the planet's surface. Behind her, 50 Marines checked their weapons and prepared for combat. "Listen up," she shouted over the roar of the engines. "There are 12,000 people down there waiting for us. Some of them are in hands right now. Our job is simple. We hit the processing camps, we free our people, and we make the wish they had never heard of humans. Any questions?" One of her Marines raised his hand. "Sergeant Major, what if we run out of ammunition?" Grinned, "Then we use our hands." They hit atmosphere and began to shake violently. Through the window, could see the camp below, a collection of portable buildings surrounded by guards and prisoners. Impact in 30 seconds. Remember your training, watch your corners, protect your teammates, and most importantly, bring our people home. They hit the ground hard, the doors flew open, and the Marines poured out into the chaos. The guards were not prepared for what hit them. They had expected frightened colonists with farming tools, not trained soldiers with power armor and plasma rifles. The first wave of guards fell before they could even raise their weapons. Led the charge personally, her rifle blazing. She moved through the camp like a force of nature, cutting down anyone who stood in her way. Marines secure the prisoners. Medical teams follow up. Let's move, people. The colonists stared in shock as armored figures descended from the sky and began cutting their chains. Some of them cried. Some of them laughed. Many of them did both at the same time. A young farmer named Han emerged from behind a building, his makeshift weapon raised. He froze when he saw the Marines. "You are from Earth?" he asked, his voice shaking. Turned to look at him. She saw the blood on his clothes, the bruises on his face, the determination in his eyes. This man had been fighting long before they arrived. "That is right," she said. "We got your signal. Took us a while to get here, but we made it. I thought no one was coming. I thought we were alone." Put a hand on his shoulder. "You were never alone, you just could not see us yet." She handed him a spare rifle. "You know how to use this." Took the weapon and checked its power cell. "I learned fast." "Good, because this fight is not over yet." In the sky above, the battle raged on. One cruiser was already dead, spinning toward the planet in flames. The other cruiser was crippled, its engines destroyed. Only the carrier remained, and it was trying to flee. Squadron pursued, their fighters swarming around the massive ship like wolves around a wounded animal. "Do not let them escape," ordered. "If that carrier gets away, it will bring reinforcements. Finish it." Lined up his shot. His targeting computer locked onto the carrier's reactor core. One good hit and it would be over. But then he saw the escape pods, dozens of them launching from the carrier's sides, survivors fleeing the battle. "Captain, the carrier is evacuating. Do we engage the escape pods?" There was a pause, then his voice came through, calm and certain. "No, let them go. Let them run back to their dominion and tell everyone what happened here. Let them tell the whole galaxy what happens when you touch human colonies." Smiled, he pulled the trigger. The carrier exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the sky above 4. The colonists below looked up and cheered, tears streaming down their faces. On the ground, Marines had secured the processing camp. The colonists who had been captured were free. The guards were either dead or in chains. One of a commander who had survived the battle, looked at with confusion in his eyes. "Why?" he asked. "Why would you sacrifice so much for this? These people are nothing. They are a forgotten colony on a forgotten world. Why would Earth burn out its ships, risk its soldiers for them?" Grabbed him by the armor and pulled him close. "Because they are ours," she said. "Every single one of them, and we do not leave our people behind. Ever." She threw him back and turned to her Marines. "Secure the rest of the area, and somebody find me the colony administrator. We have a lot of work to do." In the sky above, the Indomitable floated among the debris of the fleet. The carrier was badly damaged, its engines barely functional. but it had survived. And so had the colony. Stood on the bridge and looked down at the planet. She could see the fires from the battle, the lights of the settlement, the thousands of people who had been saved. "Captain," one of her officers reported, "all forces have been neutralized. The colony is secure." Nodded slowly. She thought about the burned-out engines, the damaged hull, the long wait for a relief fleet. They were stranded here now, far from home, with no way back. It was worth it. "Signal the colony," she said. "Tell them the nightmare is over. Tell them Earth is here." And on the surface below, 12,000 people looked up at the stars and knew they had not been forgotten. They had been saved. The sun rose over four like it had 1,000 times before, but this morning was different. This morning, the sky was filled with the wreckage of enemy ships. This morning, the people walked through their streets without fear. This morning, they were free. Park stood in the town square, surrounded by colonists and Marines. She had not slept in 3 days, but she had never felt more alive. Beside her stood Captain, Sergeant Major O, and Lieutenant Commander Shin, the heroes who had descended from the sky. "I do not know how to thank you," said. "We had given up hope. We thought no one remembered us." Shook her head. "You never gave up. You held on for 3 years without supplies, without support, without any reason to believe help was coming. That takes more courage than anything we did. But you came. You crossed the galaxy for us. We came because that is what humans do. We take care of each other." Looked around at the colonists who had gathered. Farmers, engineers, teachers, children. Ordinary people who had faced extraordinary evil and survived. "Your people fought back," she said. "I met a young man named Han. He told me about the raid on the processing camp. How your farmers attacked them with hunting rifles and farming tools." Nodded. "They took so many of our people. We could not just watch." "You know what the difference is between humans and most other species in the galaxy?" asked. "Most species submit when they face overwhelming force. They calculate the odds, realize they cannot win, and give up. But humans keep fighting, even when it is hopeless, even when they know they will lose, because we would rather die on our feet than live on our knees." In the days that followed, the Marines and colonists worked side by side to rebuild what the battle had destroyed. The Indomitable's engineers helped repair the colony's infrastructure. Medical teams treated the wounded. Soldiers who had never held a farming tool learned to plant crops, and farmers who had never fired a rifle learned basic combat training. Worked with the engineers to install new power generators, better communication equipment, and defensive systems that would protect the colony from future attacks. "You really burned out your engines to get here?" he asked one of the engineers. The woman nodded. The slipstream drives were experimental. They were only supposed to be used in extreme emergencies. But when Admiral heard your distress signal, he said there was no time to wait for safe alternatives. "He sounds like a good man." "He is. He lost his family to pirates a long time ago. He swore that no one else would ever have to feel that pain if he could help it." 3 weeks after the battle, a relief fleet arrived from Earth. A dozen ships emerged from hyperspace, carrying supplies, reinforcements, and a man who had waited 40 years for this moment. Admiral stepped off the shuttle and onto for soil. He was greeted by the entire colony, 12,000 people who had gathered to see the man who had sent their saviors. Walked through the crowd slowly, shaking hands, listening to stories, looking into the faces of the people he had fought so hard to save. When he reached, he stopped. "Administrator Park," he said. I wanted to meet the woman who held this colony together for 3 years." Took his hand. "Admiral, I wanted to meet the man who sent his best ships to save people he had never met." "I have met a lot of people in my career," said. "Politicians who calculated lives like numbers on a spreadsheet. Officers who talked about acceptable losses like it meant something. But I learned a long time ago that every life is a universe. Every person who dies takes an entire world with them, and every person we save keeps that world alive." He looked around at the colonists, at the children playing in the square, at the Marines helping rebuild damaged buildings. "The galaxy thinks we are young," he said. "They think we are weak. They think we do not understand how things work out here, that some lives are not worth saving, that some people are acceptable losses, but they are wrong. Every human being matters, every single one, and the universe is going to learn that one rescue at a time." That evening, there was a ceremony for the fallen. 18 Marines had died in the ground assault. 4 pilots had been lost in the space battle. 8 colonists had died in its raid on the processing camp, and many more had been killed by the before help arrived. Their names were read aloud, one by one. Colonists and soldiers stood together in silence, honoring those who had given everything. Spoke about the colonists who had died, spoke about her Marines, spoke about his pilots, and spoke about what their sacrifice meant. "They died so that others could live," she said. "They died so that 12,000 people could see this sunrise. They died because they believed in something bigger than themselves. They believed that every life is worth fighting for, and they were right." As the ceremony ended, Lee approached Admiral. She was the young communications officer who had sent the distress signal, the woman whose voice had crossed the galaxy and brought salvation to her people. "Admiral, I wanted to thank you personally," she said. "When I sent that signal, I did not believe anyone would hear it. I had been sending messages for 3 years with no response. I had given up." Looked at her with kind eyes, "But you kept sending anyway." "I did not know what else to do." "That is called hope, Lieutenant, and it is the most powerful force in the universe. Never lose it." Smiled, "I never will again." 1 year later, 4 had become a symbol throughout human space. The story of the forgotten colony and its rescue spread across the galaxy, carried by news reports, songs, and the testimonies of the survivors. Recruitment offices on Earth and the colonies were overwhelmed with volunteers. Young men and women who had heard the story and wanted to be part of something that mattered. New colonies were established in the most dangerous frontier zones, because now the settlers knew someone would come if they called. The Dominion sent a formal protest to the Galactic Union, demanding that Earth be punished for its aggressive actions. The Union debated the matter for weeks. In the end, they did nothing, because the truth was they were afraid. They had seen what humans did for 12,000 strangers on a forgotten world. What would they do for their core territories, for their families, for Earth itself? No one wanted to find out. On 4, life returned to normal. The fields were replanted. The damaged buildings were repaired. The children went back to school, but something had changed. The colonists walked taller now. They spoke louder. They knew that they were not alone in the universe. Han became the head of the colony's new defense force, training farmers and mechanics to protect their home. Was offered a position on Earth but chose to stay, saying he had too much work left to do. And Park remained as administrator, leading her people into a future she had once thought impossible. Lee left 4 to attend Earth's military academy. On her last day on the planet, she stood at the communication array where she had sent the signal that started everything. "Funny thing about messages," she said to no one in particular. "You never know who might be listening." 1 year into her training, she received a message from a deep space exploration vessel. They had picked up a distress signal from a non-human world. A species called the abandoned by the Galactic Union, facing destruction by pirates. Took the message to her instructors. The debate was brief. Admiral authorized the mission personally. "They are not human," one official pointed out. "We have no obligation to help them." Smiled. "We had no obligation to help 4 either, but we did, because that is who we are. And maybe, if we keep helping people who have no one else, the galaxy will start to change. Maybe other species will learn that there is another way. Maybe one day no one will be forgotten. He signed the orders. Send the fleet. And once again, Earth's warriors prepared to descend from the sky. On 4, Little was now 7 years old. She sat in her classroom, listening to her teacher tell the story of the rescue. When the teacher finished, she asked the students what they had learned. Raised her hand. Yes, I learned that we should never give up hope, she said, because even when you think no one is coming, someone might be on their way. The teacher smiled. That is a very good lesson. Nodded seriously. When I grow up, I want to fly spaceships. I want to help people who are scared and alone. I want to be like Captain and Sergeant Major O and Lieutenant Commander Shin. Why? The teacher asked. Thought for a moment. Then she gave the only answer that mattered. Because that is what humans do. And somewhere among the stars, a fleet was flying toward another world that thought no one would come. They were wrong. Earth always keeps its promises.